Imagine waking up after Tron's digital world, Val's explosive missions, Sharpe's revenge, Harry's Bigfoot chaos, Bustin' Loose's wild road trip, Short Circuit 2's robot rebellion, Deadpool's meta madness, Jackie Chan's identity crisis, and Anastasia's royal escape, all in one movie night. Which 90s gem is your fave? Drop it below. Number movie marathon, number throwback. Tron: The Next Day, a short film released as a promotional companion to Tron Legacy, offers a fascinating meta-narrative that bridges the original 1982 Tron and its sequel. Directed by Mike Bonanno with the appearance of original cast members Bruce Boxleitner and Cindy Morgan, this 9-minute piece operates as a mock documentary within the Tron universe, blurring the lines between fiction and reality. Its cinematic significance lies in its nostalgic grounding, thematic exploration of legacy, and innovative use of transmedia storytelling. Nostalgic aesthetic and continuity, the short deliberately mimics the analog visual style of the 1980s, complete with tape-grain VHS artifacts and a boxy 4:3 aspect ratio. This choice is not merely cosmetic, but serves to immediately transport the viewer to the era of Flynn's disappearance, reinforcing the temporal gap central to Tron Legacy. The interviews with actors playing themselves create a hybrid reality where the fictional events of the grid seep into our world. This meta-narrative layer challenges the audience to suspend disbelief even further, as the actors recount their experiences as if the digital realm were real. The grainy footage of the NCOM building and the retro arcade aesthetic evoke a pre-digital age, contrasting sharply with the sleek neon-drenched world of Legacy later on. Thematic depth. Legacy and loss at its core. Times the Next Day is about the aftermath of creation and the weight of legacy. This, Rough Mock Interviews. The short explores the emotional and psychological impact of Kevin Flynn's disappearance on his colleagues and friends. The character of Alan Bradley expresses both nostalgia and sorrow, hinting at the unresolved mystery that drives Legacy. The short also introduces themes of corporate conspiracy, suggesting that Flynn's technology might have been suppressed, which adds a political undertone. This dialogue fuels the central conflict of legacy, the tension between innovation and control, with the grid serving as a metaphor for the unintended consequences of technological advancement. Cinematic techniques. Meta-reference and world-building. Bonanno employs cinematic devices such as rapid cuts, observational camera work, and diegetic sound to create a sense of authenticity. The inclusion of original score snippets from the first film, like the electronic pulse of the Light Cycle Challenge, triggers immediate emotional recall. The use of a documentary style, a form traditionally associated with factual storytelling, allows the film to invest the fictional grid with a sense of historical reality. This technique anticipates the interconnected universe building now common in franchises like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. By positioning the first Tron as a documentary-like account, The Next Day retroactively gives the original film a layer of gravitas, transforming it from pure sci-fi into a quasi-historical document. The short's role in the froth. In Cheese Has a Bridge between two films released decades apart, The Next Day demonstrates the power of transmedia storytelling. It not only primes the audience for legacy, but also deepens the lore, making the narrative continuum feel cohesive. Its brevity is an asset. It packs key emotional and plot points into a digestible format, effectively creating a mystery that can only be solved by legacy. The short is also a technical feat, seamlessly integrating actors from the past into a contemporary context. Ultimately, Tron: The Next Day is a love letter to the original, while boldly setting the stage for a new era. It serves as a classic example of how a short film can expand a cinematic universe, delivering both fan service and narrative substance without overstaying its welcome. In conclusion, Tron: The Next Day is a masterclass in atmospheric storytelling, merging documentary realism with sci-fi mythos and offering profound commentary on how stories evolve across time and media. Val, directed by Ting Pu and Leo Scott, is a documentary that transcends the typical celebrity biopic by offering an unflinching, deeply cinematic exploration of identity, legacy, and the fragmented nature of self. Through the lens of Val Kilmer's personal archive, thousands of hours of home video spanning decades, the film constructs a meta-narrative about the act of recording and being recorded. The analysis that follows examines the film's use of archival material, Kilmer's voice, and the tension between performance and authenticity, ultimately arguing that Val is a meditation on how we construct and deconstruct our public and private selves. The film's cinematic power lies in its raw, intimate footage. Kilmer began filming as a teenager, capturing his brother's seizures, his early acting classes, and eventually his rise in Hollywood. This vast repository allows the directors to craft a non-linear narrative that juxtaposes youthful exuberance with present-day vulnerability. The grainy, sometimes shaky camera work of the 1980s contrasts sharply with the polished, almost static shots of Kilmer's current life, creating a visual dialectic between past and present. This formal choice reinforces the theme of temporality. The past is energetic but chaotic, while the present is quiet but constrained. The film's editing, often using jump cuts and deliberate ellipses, mirrors the fragmented nature of memory, refusing to offer a seamless story. Kilmer's voice becomes a central synonym. AT&T device. Having undergone a tracheotomy due to throat cancer, his speech is raspy and labored. Yet, the film harnesses this physical limitation as a narrative asset. Kilmer narrates via text-to-speech program, with his recorded lines occasionally interjecting. This disembodied voice creates an eerie, ghostly presence, as if Kilmer is speaking from beyond his former self. The voiceover often comments on the footage we see, creating a layering of perspectives. The young, confident actor on screen and the older, reflective artist deconstructing that image. This distance between voice and image underscores the documentary's central tension, the disconnect between the persona and the person. Performance is a recurring motif. Kilmer's career was built on immersive roles, notably as Jim Morrison in The Doors and Doc Holliday in Tombstone. The film dissects these performances not merely as acting, but as extensions of Kilmer's own identity quest. He famously learned almost everything about Morrison, blurring the line between performer and subject. In Val, this becomes a metaphor for his life. He was always playing a role, even off-screen. The home videos reveal a man constantly performing for the camera, whether mimicking characters or staging elaborate skits with his children. This raises ontological questions. Is there a real Val beneath the mask? Or is the mask all there is? The film suggests that identity is a performance, and the self is an archive of roles. The sensory experience of the film is heightened by its sound design. The mixing of ambient natural sounds, wind, water, silence, with the mechanical voiceover creates a somber, contemplative mood. In scenes where Kilmer reflects on his father's death or his own mortality, the sound opens up, allowing space for silence. This oral minimalism invites the viewer to sit with the gravity of his thoughts. Unlike typical documentaries that fill every moment with explanation, the music, sparse and often melancholic, underscores this introspective tone. Ultimately, Val is a cinematic achievement because it uses the documentary form to question the nature of truth. By presenting Kilmer's own recordings, the film appears to offer unmediated access, yet the director's choices in assembly make clear that all documentaries are constructed narratives. The film does not resolve the mystery of Kilmer. Instead, it embraces the irresolvable. The final images, a slowly smiling Kilmer, his face partly paralyzed, looking at old footage, encapsulate this. The past is alive but inaccessible. Val is thus a poignant, self-reflexive film about the impossibility of knowing oneself through representation, and a testament to the power of cinema to capture not just a life, but the very effort of living it. Bernard Cornwell's Sharpe's Revenge stands as a cinematic anomaly, a television film that transcends its budget and format to achieve a rare emotional and thematic density. Released in 1997 as part of the beloved Sharpe series, this installment follows Richard Sharpe, now a colonel, as he faces the aftermath of Waterloo and personal betrayal. The film's deep cinematic analysis reveals a layered examination of guilt, redemption, and the scars of war, all executed with a visual and narrative economy that belies its television origins. The film opens with a masterful sequence, Sharpe wandering the corpse-strewn field of Waterloo. The camera lingers, static and unflinching, capturing the horror in long, silent takes. This is not the romanticized victory of historical epics. It is a nightmare of mud, blood, and broken bodies. The sound design is stark, the wet squelch of boots, the distant moans of the dying. Director Tom Clegg uses this prelude to establish the film's central theme, the psychological cost of survival. Sharpe's face, worn and hollow, becomes a landscape of trauma. Sean Bean's performance here is a masterclass in restrained anguish. Every twitch of his jaw, every glassy stare, speaks of a man haunted by ghosts. Structurally, Sharpe's Revenge eschews linear chronology. It folds back on itself, using flashbacks and layered memories to mirror Sharpe's fractured psyche. This is heightened by the mise-en-scène. The interiors of the Duke of Wellington's camp are cray, amped and claustrophobic, while the battlefields blur into a continuous, disorienting hellscape. The recurring motif of mirrors and reflective surfaces, puddles, polished swords, a window pane, suggests a man trying to glimpse his true self through the grime of war. The film's cinematography by Chris O'Dell deserves particular attention. Handheld cameras dominate the combat scenes, producing a jittery, visceral immediacy. But in moments of dialogue, the frame becomes eerily still, as if the characters are pinned under observation. The color palette is muted, a desaturated wash of gray and brown, punctuated only by the red of British uniforms or the orange of a candle flame, each pop of color a reminder of life leading into death. Characterization deepens the cinematic texture. Major Pierre Ducos, Sharpe's nemesis, is more than a villain. He is a mirror of Sharpe's own capacity for ruthlessness. Their confrontations are lit with harsh, low-angle lighting, casting grotesque shadows that strip away pretense. In one pivotal scene, they face off over a firelit table, and the camera circles them slowly, as though observing a duel of ghosts. The emotional core, however, lies with Sharpe's wife, Lucille. Their scenes together are suffused with tenderness, a quiet counterpoint to the chaos. But even these intimate moments are shot with a slight soft focus, as if memory itself is softening under the weight of guilt. Sound and music, composed by Dominic Muldowney, play a crucial role. The score oscillates between martial bravado and aching strings, but the most powerful sonic element is silence. Long, painful pauses between words, where the only sound is a ticking clock or a dying ember. In its final act, Sharpe's Revenge confronts the unthinkable. Sharpe's decision to execute a French officer in cold blood, the camera stays on his face, unblinking, as the shot rings out. There is no triumph, only a hollow acceptance. The final image, Sharpe walking away from his old life, rifle discarded, into a mist of unknown, is a bravura ending. It refuses closure, leaving us with the unanswerable question. Can a man ever truly escape his past? Sharpe's Revenge is more than a war film. It is a cinematic meditation on memory and morality, proving that depth can flourish even on a television budget. Its technical craft, the visual poetry of its sequences, the nuanced performances, the thematic commitment to realism elevates it to a work of art. It is a haunting testament to the price of victory and the ghosts that soldiers carry always. John Hughes' 1987 family comedy, Harry and the Hendersons, is often dismissed as a light-hearted romp. But beneath its furry exterior lies a profound cinematic meditation on suburban alienation, ecological anxiety, and the redemptive power of the grotesque. Director William Deere crafts a visual language that oscillates between domestic claustrophobia and liberating chaos. using the oversized Sasquatch as a surreal mirror for the Henderson family's emotional stagnation. The film's opening sequences establish a sterile suburban landscape, perfectly manicured lawns, identical houses, and the Henderson patriarch George trapped in a midlife crisis, masked by corporate ambition. The car accident that introduces Harry is filmed with sudden, jarring close-ups, a crack in the windshield, a massive hairy hand that destabilize the audience's expectations of safety. The creature itself, designed by Rick Baker in an Oscar-winning performance cum makeup, is a masterclass in non-human expression. Baker's animatronic face conveys childlike wonder and hurt with unsettling precision, creating a character who is both monstrous and profoundly vulnerable. Deer's cinematography initially frames domestic scenes with stifling symmetry. The family dinner table, the father's office. Once Harry enters the Henderson home, the camera becomes unmoored. Handheld shots during Harry's rampages collide with static wide angles of destruction, visually embodying the Freudian uncanny, the familiar made strange. Home, traditionally a sanctuary, becomes a chaotic wilderness where a Scrabble tile is chewed and a moose head is donned as a hat. This visceral collapse of order mirrors the family's slow unraveling. George's rage, his son's bullying, his daughter's preoccupation with status. Harry functions as a transitional object in a Jungian sense, a wildness the Hendersons must integrate into their psyche to heal. The scene where George tries to pass Harry as a relative to the police is a darkly comedic allegory of repression. The suburbanites' horror to confess that chaos lives among them. When Harry finally flees to the forest, the film shifts to wide, Rousseau-like landscapes of the Pacific Northwest. The saturated greens and majestic mountains stand in stark contrast to the muted suburban palette, suggesting that true freedom lies in the wilderness, both literal and internal. Lithgow's performance, ranging from a Reagan-era father's derision to tearful tenderness, anchors the film's theoretical weight. In his final monologue, "You're a real human being, Harry. A real, honest-to-goodness human being." He inverts the hierarchy of humanity. The creature, without language or clothes, embodies authenticity. The Hendersons, constricted by social norms, are the real monsters. The film's climax, a hunt led by a grizzled tracker, becomes a rite of passage. The family chooses to protect Harry, rejecting the violent masculinity that the tracker represents. The graveyard scene, where Harry visits his ancestral bones, is arguably the film's most layered moment. The ghostly rising of Sasquatch spirits is both absurd and haunting, suggesting a collective unconscious of forgotten species. Deer never fully explodes the tension between comedy and melancholy. The ending's triumphant return to the woods feels too neat, too Hollywood. But perhaps that's the point. Harry and the Hendersons is a fairy tale for a generation on the cusp of environmental awakening. Harry is not just a Bigfoot. He is the repressed feeling of interconnectedness, the untamed self that suburbs desperately forestall. The film's enduring charm lies in its radical suggestion that the inhuman might teach us what it means to be human. Bustin' Loose, directed by Oz Scott and starring Richard Pryor, is a comedic road movie that transcends its genre trappings to offer a nuanced commentary on race, class, and resilience in Reagan-era America. The film follows ex-con Joe Braxton as he is hired to transport a group of troubled orphaned children across the country, leading to a journey of mutual redemption. While often dismissed as a lighthearted vehicle for Pryor's manic energy, a deeper cinematic analysis reveals a complex work grappling with systemic inequality and the fragile nature of freedom. At its core, Bustin' Loose is a visual and thematic exploration of confinement and liberation. The film opens with Joe's release from prison, only to find himself immediately trapped by societal expectations. The camera often frames him within tight spaces, narrow hallways, congested buses, or the claustrophobic interior of the children's home, mirroring the barriers of race and poverty. Cinematographer John A. Alonzo uses warm natural light during early outdoor scenes, contrasting with the stark fluorescent tones of institutional settings. As the journey progresses, this color palette shifts to vibrant earthy tones, particularly in the pastoral sequences of the Pacific Northwest, symbolizing the characters' gradual release from their metaphorical cages. Pryor's performance is a masterclass in physical comedy serving deeper character beats. His body language conveys constant vigilance. Shoulders hunched, fingers twi, checking a habitual hyper-awareness born from years of incarceration and racial profiling. Director Scott capitalizes on Pryor's ability to switch between outbursts of anger and unexpected tenderness, as seen in the famous Bustin' Loose musical number, where Joe's improvised joy exposes the children to unfiltered black achievement. The song, a soulful celebration of breaking free, becomes a diegetic rupture in the film's realism, allowing the characters a moment of pure possibility. Despite its comedic trappings, the film subtly critiques systemic failures. The children's home is a microcosm of neglect, a dilapidated 10-bed mansion near a sewage pipe, where the sole Ms. Paul represents exhausted social systems. The film's climax, involving a junkyard chase and symbolic destruction of old cars, reads as an allegory of dismantling the very machinery of economic exclusion. The junkyard, filled with rusting relics of American consumerism, becomes a site of transformation where broken parts can be reshaped into new possibilities. Technically, the film excels in its use of sound design to bridge its comedic and dramatic tones. The soundtrack, featuring radios bustin' out, syncopates with the rhythmic chanting during the bus journey, creating a audio-visual groove that undercuts the gravity of the children's trauma. Conversely, silence is deployed effectively. In the scene where Joe witnesses a child's abuse, the total absence of sound forces viewers to confront the chill of institutional violence. Ultimately, Bustin' Loose endures because it refuses neat resolutions. Joe and the children achieve a measure of autonomy not through charitable acts, but by learning to laugh at the absurdity of their circumstances. In one final, breathtaking image, the camera holds on a wide shot of the repaired bus driving into the sunset, a rolling arc of misfits whose journey, much like the film itself, carries the weight of both tears and triumph. Short Circuit 2 Feet is a film that transcends its origins as a family-friendly sequel, offering a rich tapestry of themes and cinematic techniques that invite deep analysis. Directed by Kenneth Johnson, the film continues the story of Number 5, a robot who achieves sentience, here seeking identity and belonging in the urban jungle of New York City. The sequel shifts from the pastoral setting of the first film to a gritty, neon-lit cityscape, reflecting a more complex commentary on consumerism, industrialization, and the human condition. One of the film's central themes is the conflict between individuality and societal commodification. Number 5, or Johnny 5, is pursued by corrupt corporate interests. Specifically, the villainous Fred Ritter and his henchmen, who aim to exploit his advanced AI for profit. This mirrors the real-world anxieties of the late 1980s about technology outstripping ethical boundaries. The film posits that innovation, when untethered from human empathy, becomes a tool for oppression. Johnny's journey from a naive, childlike entity to a self-aware being who chooses compassion over violence is a poignant metaphor for growing up in a world that often values utility over humanity. Cinematographically, Short Circuit 2 Feet employs contrasting visuals to underline its themes. Director Johnson uses a dynamic color palette. The cold blues and grays of the city's industrial zones contrast sharply with the warm, organic tones of the characters' clothing, emphasizing the dehumanizing modern environment. The robot's subjective point-of-view shots, using fisheye lenses and split screens, represent his evolving consciousness, transforming from raw data processing into nuanced emotional perception. Notably, during the chase sequences through Chinatown, the camera intricately weaves through narrow alleys, aligning the viewer with Johnny's heightened awareness and vulnerability. Sound design plays a crucial role in character development. Johnny's interactions are punctuated with humorous synthesized voices sound effects, but as the film progresses, The score by David Shire becomes more melancholic, foreshadowing the darkness of his persecution. The contrast between upbeat pop music and heavier synths during crisis moments mirrors the bifurcation of Johnny's existence, both a marvel of technology and a being capable of suffering. Performances elevate the material. Steve Guttenberg as Benjamin provides a counterbalance to Johnny's innocence, depicting a man who must reconcile his pragmatism with newfound responsibility. Ali Sheedy returns as Stephanie, embodying ethical grounding. The villain Fred is painted without subtlety. His glinting glasses and slicked-back hair telegraph his deceptive nature, but his one-dimensionality serves a purpose. It emphasizes the stark moral universe where technology can be weaponized by greed. Ultimately, Short Circuit 2 Feet is a meditation on the search for home and identity. Johnny's repeated chant, "I am alive," rose from a declaration of fact to a cry for recognition. The film culminates in a scene where, damaged and nearly destroyed, Johnny chooses to refrain from harming his tormentors. A direct reversal of the typical robot uprising narrative. This moral choice posits that true humanity lies in mercy, not vengeance, in its sincere yet never cloying exploration of empathy. Short Circuit 2 Feet elevates itself above typical genre fare, becoming a timeless fable for the digital age. For all its campy flaws, the film succeeds in creating a world where a machine's soul matters, and where the capacity to forgive becomes the ultimate measure of life. Once Upon a Deadpool, the PG-13 recut of Deadpool 2 presents a fascinating case study in cinematic deconstruction and meta-narrative. While ostensibly a sanitized version of its R-rated predecessor, the film reveals a deeper engagement with the conventions of storytelling, genre parody, and the very nature of adaptation. Director David Leitch and star Ryan Reynolds leverage the framing device of Fred Savage's The Kid in Bed, a direct homage to The Princess Bride, to self-reflexively critique the studio-mandated edit while simultaneously underscoring the nihilistic core of Deadpool's universe. The film's structural irony operates on multiplicating levels. By literally cutting bad words and graphic violence, the filmmakers foreground the arbitrary nature of censorship. Deadpool's meta-commentary, "I'm friendly. I'm the family-friendly version of me," acknowledges the studio's commercial motives while satirizing them. This aligns with what scholar Thomas L. Sisser terms parapractic cinema. The film includes its own critique within its digesis. The framing device allows Deadpool to directly address the audience about the editing process, transforming the recut into a performance of institutional control. Narratively, the film retains the emotional beats of Deadpool 2. Wade Wilson's struggle with loss, his attempts to protect the young mutant Russell, and his eventual martyrdom. However, the PG-13 version foregrounds these themes by stripping away the scatological distract. TN's the core of the story, a broken hero seeking redemption through self-sacrifice, becomes more prominent. This aligns with a classic Hollywood 3-act structure, but Deadpool's awareness of it adds a Brechtian alienation effect. When he says, "Let's face it, you're not here for the plot," he enacts a postmodern self-consciousness reminiscent of Godard. The pastiche of The Princess Bride is not mere homage, but a crucial narrative device. Just as The Princess Bride frames a grandfather reading a story to his sick grandson, Once Upon a Deadpool frames a time-traveling tale about a sick Wade. This intertextual layer comments on the nature of storytelling itself. Stories are fundamentally about connection and healing. The film's climax, where Deadpool chooses to sacrifice himself for Russell, mirrors the earlier film but gains poignancy when framed as a bedtime story, making the violence more symbolic than literal. Critical reception was mixed, with some praise for the meta-humor and Reynolds' performance, but criticism for the diluted action. Yet this ignores the film's true innovation. It is a studio-mandated recut that openly mocks the very concept. In this, it anticipates the trend of director's cuts and franchise revisions that dominate contemporary streaming culture. The film ends with a post-credits scene where Deadpool mocks the predictable PSA about speaking to children, only to interrupt it with a final joke about chimichangas. This refusal to fully conform T. Either the R-rated chaos or PG. 1-3 morality mirrors the liminal space the film occupies between genre, between audiences, and between sincerity and irony. Ultimately, Once Upon a Deadpool is not a lesser version, but a parallel universe comment on adaptation. It challenges viewers to consider how censorship shapes meaning, the commercial constraints of franchise filmmaking, and the enduring power of the story within a story to reflect on its own artifice. Echoing existential quandaries through a lens of neon-lit alienation, Who Am I embarks on a cinematic odyssey that merges cyberpunk aesthetics with psychological thriller sensibilities. Directed by Baran Bo-Odar, the film investigates the fragmentation of identity within the digital labyrinth, where the protagonist, Benjamin, a reclusive hacker, navigates the shifting boundaries between reality and virtual constructs. The film's visual palette is drenched in perpetual twilight, a blue-green glow that seeps through rain-streaked windows, illuminating the characters' faces like pixels on a screen. This chromatic choice underscores the pervasive digital influence, crafting a world where humans become avatars within their own lives. Odar's mise-en-scène often places Benjamin in claustrophobic spaces, cramped apartments, underground tunnels, or the sterile servers of data centers, reflecting his entrapment within societal norms and his own psyche. In contrast, the hacker group Clay operates in dimly lit, chaotic club environments, their anarchy a vivid splash of color against the monochromatic city. Narratively, the film employs a complex temporal structure, weaving Benjamin's present search for identity with flashbacks to his traumatic past, his role as an unwitting participant in a fatal accident. This fractured timeline mirrors digital data packets fragmented and reassembled, inviting the audience to piece together Benjamin's truth alongside him. The amnesia trope becomes a metaphor for digital erasure. Benjamin's struggle to recall his past parallels, our struggle to maintain coherent selves amidst viral data. Sound design is pivotal. The industrial hum of servers, a cacophony of keyboard clicks, and a haunting ambient score create an immersive auditory environment. Silence is deployed strategically, often in moments of confrontation between Benjamin and his memories, or between the Clay members, highlighting the discomfort of unmediated human connection in a hyper-mediated world. Thematically, Who Am I critiques the notion of selfhood in the digital age. The phrase, "Who am I?" is no longer a philosophical query but a technical problem. A password, a profile picture. Benjamin reinvents himself through multiple aliases and even considers selling his identity online. The film suggests that identity is not inherent but performative, crafted through code and social interaction. The final twist, that Benjamin's therapist is a figment of his imagination, destabilizes the entire narrative, prompting viewers to question whose story they've been witnessing. Is Benjamin constructing his reality, or is he being constructed by it? In conclusion, Who Am I is a nefarious inquiry into the human condition. It serves as a cautionary parable about the erosion of authenticity in the shadow of our digital creations. Through its meticulous cinematography, nonlinear storytelling, and thematic depth, the film posits that in a world where everyone is anonymous and nobody is truly nobody, they are merely unknown to the systems that seek to define them. Anastasia is a cinematic gem that masterfully blends history, fantasy, and musical theater into a visually stunning and emotionally resonant tale. Directed by Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, the film reimagines the tragic story of Grand Duchess Anastasia Romanov, reportedly the sole survivor of the Bolshevik execution of the Russian imperial family. While historically inaccurate, the film uses this premise to explore themes of identity, memory, and belonging, all wrapped in a lush, animated aesthetic that evokes both the opulence of Tsarist Russia and the gritty determination of neat teen 20s Paris. The film's cinematography is a standout, with sweeping, hand-drawn animation that captures the grandeur of the Russian Winter Palace and the intrigue of the Parisian Exposition. The opening sequence, a ballet Once Upon a December, is a masterclass in visual storytelling. The swirling snow, the spinning chandeliers, and the ghostly figures of the Romanov family convey both the beauty and the tragedy of Anastasia's lost world. The use of color is deliberate. Warm golds and deep blues dominate the imperial scenes, while cooler, muted tones define Anastasia's amnesiac present, symbolizing her emotional detachment until she rediscovers her past. The character designs are expressive and distinctive. Anya, with her sharp cheekbones and determined posture, is a departure from typical Disney princesses. She is stubborn, resourceful, and fiercely independent. Dmitri, the con artist, and Vlad, T. The eccentric noblemen provide comic relief but also serve as catalysts for Anya's journey. The villain Rasputin, voiced by Christopher Lloyd, is a memorable antagonist. His leprous appearance and demonic bat companion, Artak, embodying the supernatural forces that haunt Anya. His musical number, In the Dark of the Night, is a darkly comic tour de force, using shadowy imagery and frantic animation to externalize his vengeful obsession. Musically, the film's score by David Newman and songs by Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens are integral to its emotional impact. Journey to the Past is Anya's anthem of hope, its ascending melody mirroring her ascent from amnesia to self-discovery. Paris Holds the Key captures the city's allure as a place of new beginnings. The climactic Once Upon a December reprise is a poignant realization that although the past is irretrievable, it need not define one's future. The reprise, set in the crumbling Winter Palace, uses the song's waltz-like structure to evoke a bittersweet farewell, with Anya choosing not to restore the monarchy, but to embrace her present identity. The film's narrative arc hinges on the theme of memory. Anya's journey is not just to find her family, but to reclaim her sense of self. The amnesia device allows for a poignant exploration of identity. She must choose who she wants to be, rather than being defined solely by her lineage. The resolution, where she rejects the imperial legacy for love and agency, subverts tradition. Our fairy tale closures, offering a modern feminist perspective. Dmitri's own redemption as he renounces his mercenary motives underscores the idea that one's past is less important than one's choices in the present. Cinematically, the 1997 film also makes innovative use of 2D, 3D hybrid animation in the song Rumor in St. Petersburg, where the characters glide through a street scene that uses parallax scrolling to create depth. The Paris sequence incorporates fluid, dynamic shots that evoke the city's bustling energy, a stark contrast to the static, frozen Russia. The film's pacing follows a classic three-act structure: establishment of Anya's identity crisis, the journey of discovery, and the climactic confrontation with Rasputin, which uses supernatural elements to externalize internal conflicts. In conclusion, Anastasia endures as a beautifully crafted film that uses its animated medium to explore profound themes with visual and musical brilliance. Its integration of historical tragedy, personal redemption, and a dash of magic realism creates a timeless story about embracing the future while honoring the past. The film's technical achievements in animation, its nuanced character portrayals, and its thematically rich narrative ensure its place as a significant work in the animated canon. Every choice you've made, every thought you've nurtured has forged the reality you inhabit right now. But here's the mind blower. The future isn't set, it's a blank canvas waiting for your next stroke. Your next action, however small, can rewrite the story. So ask yourself, what will you paint into existence? The brush is in your hand. Now go make it count.